Police arrested a man. He's a criminal justice activist, and he boasted about turning his life around after getting out of prison as recently as going on shows like the Joe Rogan podcast.
It was at that moment where I really said, I have to change my life. I have to change my life. I just can't do this. And something just says, look up the life expectancy. Expectancy at that time was 67 years old, and I did the math. And I said, I'm gonna die in prison, man. And when I got out, I made a decision that I was gonna walk away. And I didn't care about what the consequences was. And I said to myself, I've been doing bad for so long, I'm gonna try to do something good. If all else fails, I could always go back to doing bad.
Yeah, he definitely went back to doing bad. Unfortunately. Joe Rogan experienced guest Sheldon Johnson served over 20 years in prison for robberies he committed and assaults. Granted, these robberies and assaults were on drug dealers who owed him money. Basically, he went to jail for like a gun charge. It got dropped. And when he got out, people just thought that they shouldn't pay him anymore. So he found them and got his money back. First dude he caught owed him $5,000 and he was with his girlfriend. Sheldon and his friends assaulted him and robbed him for whatever they had, including the girlfriend. Another gentleman who owed Johnson money sold drugs out of an auto shop. Now, Johnson this time feeling nice. He didn't really assault him fully. He just roughed him up a little, got what he could out of him.
And when I came home, when I finally located this particular individual, he had his girlfriend with him. And this guy owed me $5,000 for some drugs that I had gave him. Another guy that I ran into, he also owed me some money. He owed me $7,000. He was selling drugs out of an auto parts store. I robbed him. Long story short, in December 1997, I get arrested for both cases. And I remember when he said 50 years. And he just called me a menace to society, and he gave me 50 years.
I think the judge might have been right. Now, I'm for prison reform and giving people second chances. If you did the crime and served the time. My Sheba just burped. I don't know if it's on camera, but she just literally burped behind me. It threw me off. If you did the crime and served the time, you should have a second chance, maybe even a third chance. But maybe you got out of jail on good behavior and education. Then if you get a decent job at a law firm titled Queen's Defenders, and you're hired as an advocate for criminal justice reform, and then you run into an old prison rival named Colin Small, and instead of having a laugh with him or calling the police if you have to, or just avoiding them all in all, you choose to unalive this man by shooting him in the head, dismantling his body, and storing his torso in a blue container along with his head in a fridge as if he's Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Maybe it was better if you stayed in prison.
He is accused of shooting 44-year-old Colin Small in the head in Small's 6th-floor apartment on Summit Avenue and then dismembering his body,
yelling to reporters that he didn't do what cops say he did. When police entered the apartment, they found a man's torso and a foot inside a bin. Law enforcement sources say after seeing Johnson on surveillance footage, they searched his apartment and found the victim's legs, arms, and head in the freezer.
The fact that he's yelling out, I'm innocent. Bro, what part? What part are you innocent for? Is it the shooting? Is it the chopping? Is it the unloading a human head as if it's groceries into your fridge? Was this whole thing an accident? Were you like, oopsie, I shot him. Oopsie, I accidentally cut him apart. Oopsie, I accidentally froze his whole head. Now, I understand if someone from your past and your old life threatens you or is trying to harm you and you protect yourself. You end up shooting them. They're unalive. That sucks, but it happens. If someone tried to hurt me, I would do the same thing. That's 100% understandable. Now, I know I'm armchair quarterbacking here, but where Johnson went wrong is he didn't call the police. He decided to reenact the scene out of The Sopranos with a hacksaw. Then he wore a bunch of different disguises like he's Barney Stinson trying to get laid. And the reason why he was wearing the blonde wig is because he used it as a disguise to get rid of the victim's Audi, meaning he jumped in the car, drove it to an undisclosed location, took an Uber back, and then got in the building wearing a blonde wig and getting caught on surveillance. Now, I'm not a detective, but I think a black American man wearing a blonde wig would stand out more than just going as himself. Also, it's on surveillance that both of them went into the apartment and only Johnson came out. But the thing that really messed up his pleas of innocence is the fact that the superintendent for the building received phone calls from tenants saying that they heard gunshots, 2 specifically, and that they heard a man pleading for his life. Quote, "Please don't unalive me. I have a family."
Orlando Medina says a tenant called him around 1 a.m.
Someone was pleading for their life. She said she heard 2 gunshots someone saying, please don't kill me, I got family, something like that. And then 2 more gunshots pretty quickly. Coming in, coming out of the apartment with different articles of clothes, different wigs, you know. So it's weird. Everything was observed by the surveillance cameras. Right. All those things are, those things I saw.
Imagine being the superintendent. This whole time you see Johnson running around in disguises and you see everything that's happening on surveillance. And you're like, wow, I heard a gunshot. Wow, the tenants told me they heard a man pleading for his life. I think I should call the police. Then the cops actually show up, take Johnson out of his apartment and question him, and then give a run through of the apartment to make sure everything's okay. They don't find anything. They apologize to Johnson, and then they're on their way. Johnson at this time is fairly smart, and he figures out, hey, the super probably called the police on me, and he also has surveillance footage. I have to talk to him. So he tells tenants, hey, have you seen the super? I want to talk to him. Luckily, they didn't run into each other. And upon hearing this, the super decided, hey, I guess I'll go talk to Johnson, clear up the air, not realizing that he's putting his life at risk. He might end up like Colin Small and or be brutally assaulted or framed even. And I know what you're thinking. How can one individual be so violent? Well, Johnson just wasn't a regular dude. He was a high-ranking member of the Bloods, meaning he had people under him, a nation, as he said it. Other men feared and respected him, probably mostly feared.
Because I was in a gang, and I was top of the food chain. I had my own nation. I wasn't just like the random gang member. I had a whole nation under me. And when I got out, I made a decision that I was going to walk away. And I didn't care about what the consequences was. I left the gangs alone, which was a benefit for them because, I was what you call an authoritarian. I was a rule guy. I'm still a rule guy. I like rules.
Why was it to their advantage to get rid of you?
Because I was the type of person who would say, you doing that for what reason? Nah, you can't do that. The rule says that you can't do this, you can't do this. This is what the rules say. And
the rules of the prison or the rules of the streets?
The gang. The rules of the street. Yeah, there was rules. So I was a rule guy, and they just, it was to their advantage to get me out of the way. So when I decided to take a step back, they were like, yes.
I don't blame anyone in that prison celebrating the day Johnson left. If it was me, I'd be celebrating throughout the prison with pee-pee wine and whatever we can disguise as cheese. But when he's talking about rules and being a stifler, I'm wondering what rules did Colin break? Because no one deserves what happened to him. And on top of everything, our dear friend Joe Rogan has to wake up every day knowing that he sat across from a dude who ended up chopping another dude's head off. Obviously, this is terrible for prison reform and the stigma associated with ex-cons. What law firm is going to take a risk of hiring a reformed ex-con who wants to do criminal justice? This whole situation's terrible. My condolences to the family of Colin Small. And I think I'll leave it there as this is getting depressing. That's the video. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next video.